There's this one moment that the class found amusing that he played back on loop for us because he was a cool teacher. You'd like him. Alright, today I want to talk about how fiction can reflect reality. Yeah, it's not always perfect, but it can be an embodiment of the current zeitgeist to an extent, or a reflection of the real world, and sometimes it can shape it, as I learned in my media, culture, and society class in college. First, I'm going to play you the clip from the Matt Walsh show that got me thinking about that, and then we'll discuss.
The British government is playing a large role in creating this alternate universe for the obvious reason that it deflects from their failures. And that's why they're now instructing schools to play adolescence for their students as if it has any kind of instructional value whatsoever. Watch.
It has sparked a national conversation, and now the Prime Minister wants to be a part of it.
And I have to be honest, as a dad, I have not found it easy viewing.
The creators of Adolescence were invited to Downing Street along with youth charities to discuss the show's themes.
The thing that's been really lovely since the show's been on has been hearing friends, family, people that I barely know contact me and tell me that they're having conversations on the sofa that they haven't had with their teenagers.
He's got something he wants to talk to you all about.
In order to prompt more of those often difficult discussions, the programme is being made available to all secondary schools in the UK for free.
So they're calling Adolescence a documentary, and they're using it as an educational tool in schools now. This is the British equivalent of the Handmaid's Tale metaphor, except the...
Okay, I think you get the idea. So, the British government's not completely wrong to use a work of fiction as an exemplar, if you will. So you can use it as a example, like I use it all the time with no hard feelings to demonstrate how Gen Z is compared to millennials or Gen Xers in terms of partying habits or the demise of party culture. You can actually watch that movie and then compare it to something like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is an apt comparison because Ferris Bueller himself played Percy's dad. And here in America, public schools have used fictional works of fiction to reflect to show reflections of the real life, or get us thinking about real life to some extent. Like throughout US history class, US history 1 and 2, historical dramas have been used for giving us a better idea of history. Like US history 2, teacher showed us part of Schindler's List, not the whole movie, but I personally think Schindler's List should be mandatory viewing in school to give an idea of the brutality of the Holocaust. So yeah, he showed us snippets of it to give us an idea of what the concentration camps were like. Very upsetting. It's based on a true story, but is a scripted narrative. And I finally watched the whole thing in 2023. I have to say, Steven Spielberg did a really good job having it show how it began with the simple segregation and then escalated to the camps. You know the ones I'm talking about. When we got to World War II, and or at least the Japanese theater of war, he showed us this this one movie called Flags of Iwo Jima, which was basically about the guys who are part of that iconic photo of them raising the American flag on one of the battlefields in Japan. That's all I remember off the top of my head. In U.S. History 1, when we were learning about the American Revolution, my teacher showed us the clip of Mel Gibson's character at the Continental Congress disavowing the idea of going to war to demonstrate how some in the American Revolution were actually opposed to the war because they didn't want it. Now, like Schindler's List, I eventually went to watch The Patriot on my own. It is an amazing movie. You should check it out. Yeah, it's not historically accurate to a T. Mel Gibson's character is a composite of various people from the time. But what he symbolizes, the reluctant soldier who is eventually forced to pick a side after Jason Isaacs' character literally murders two of his sons throughout, and his daughter-in-law, and is generally overly brutal. Of course, I don't think America and the UK would be on good terms if any of the stuff he did was actually real. I don't know how realistic to a T it is, nor am I going to continue thinking about that right now because we'd be here all day. What other movies have we been shown? Oh, technically, every English class throughout middle school and high school, they they have us thinking about real out in relation to our lives. Like The Great Gatsby. All the themes of how you can't recreate the past and things like that. That was the idea of it. The reason it's in English classes, it's an educational tool to get people thinking about that kind of thing. I'd say it's more applicable today at my age. At the age of 28, I cannot recreate the past. I cannot get the Henriotti together for anything. I tried recreating the past in some way when I tried inviting my friends to go see The Martian at the Mugar Omni Theater. Two of them immediately were busy. One of them said he could at first, but then got assigned a college project that he said he needed to give his undivided attention. Which, as I said before, and I'm going to say it again, I do not fault him for that. And then, like I've also said, No Hard Feelings reflects the cultural shift away from party culture toward what I called isolation culture, but one of the comments in my video about how it reflected that could better be called introspection culture. I wouldn't be surprised if 30 years from now, schools could use that as a tool to be like, this is what Gen Z was like. At least the middle section of them, those that grew up more with phones and more advanced video games, the ones who weren't as close to the younger millennials in age. Aaron Clary is also right about American Beauty being a great look at the emptiness of the typical American dream with the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and all that. Now, Lester Burnham only has the one kid, and yeah, it shows how he's stuck in a dead bedroom marriage with his wife, who cares more about putting up the image of success than actual success or being her authentic self. Go watch it. It's a good movie. It deserved the Best Picture win for the year 1999. Office Space, another one that I've talked about, reflected the mundanity and the wish to escape mundane office work. You know, TPS reports becoming a metaphor for, no, not a metaphor, code word for pointless busy work. Really, you could go down the. I could go on all day about other movies. You know what? I'm actually going to pull up my digital movie library and see what comes to mind as I scroll through. All right, American Graffiti. Oh, I studied this in film studies, actually. My teacher went on about how it reflected American culture of 1962, the end of the innocence, if you will, of the 50s before the JFK assassination, the Vietnam War, so many other things. Yeah, the whole thing is a metaphor for the end of America's innocence, if you will. For context, it was released in 1973, but took place in 1962. The tagline was, "Where were you in 62?" Back to the Future. Ironically timeless as a movie about time travel because it's not really about traveling back from 85 to 55 and then back to 85 and then over to 2015 in the trilogy, I mean part 2, and then 1885 in the final installment. It's more about the timeless message that you become your parents, or your parents used to be like you and you are going to be like them someday. To an extent. Obviously, personal agency, some choices can be made differently. Otherwise, you do typically just end up becoming your parents. Alright, what else? Oh, Brave. Well, that one I can't really think of anything specific for how it reflects culture or society, but her mom's line, "Legends are lessons," I think exemplifies this perfectly, and would probably make a good title for the video. Alright, and then oh, Diary of a Wimpy Kid reflects the painful experience of middle school. District 9 is I guess you could say, is something of a more brutal depiction of what it would look like if aliens actually did land on Earth. I haven't watched in a while, so I don't really remember. Ex Machina is a thought-provoking, a more ethereal, thought-provoking sci-fi movie that I would argue reflects our fascination with AI and love robots, as we'll call them. Yeah, I'm going in alphabetical order in my movie library. I have over 490 movies to choose from, so bear with me while I take a look through. Oh, Good Boys. I think I mentioned that in another video. That's a great reflection of. Actually, it's not really an accurate depiction of middle school in the 2010s, comparatively speaking, because it depicts the members of Gen Z who get into a lot more antics than Percy ever could have wished before the events of what's it called? No Hard Feelings. I'm in the H's, I's, J, C. Jurassic Park has the whole discussion about just because you can doesn't mean you should. And with Ian Malcolm being like, everyone was so obsessed with asking whether we could, no one ever stopped to ask if we should. I know that was a terrible impression of Jeff Goldblum. The Kingsman movies. I'm trying to think of something for that because I vaguely remember. I can't think of anything for that right now. Like what it reflects. Um, and yeah, I can't think of anything for National Treasure. I just came up on Office Space and The Patriot, but we already went over that. By the time this video comes out, I'll have had my annual rewatch of Patriots Day, which is based on the true story of the events of the 2013 Boston Marathon and the manhunt for the perpetrators of what happened there that year. Sorry, I'm a little scared to say the word out loud on YouTube. But let's just say that, like The Patriot, they have a composite character played by a well-known actor for the sake of having a single protagonist to follow along with, but it tells the real-world story of the real-world heroics. I break down crying every single time I watch it because, okay, I need to move on before I lose my composure here. Ready Player One, I would argue, is a decent reflection of obsession with screen time and needing to get out in the real world and go touch grass, which I should probably do because it's supposed to be like almost 80 degrees today. And I haven't really left the house for much of anything since I can't even remember. Beyond just getting dropped off at and picked up from the instant gratification job, picking up grocery orders, therapy, and doctor appointments. Alright, I'm in the S's. South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. It was a brilliant way to turn the for Matt Stone and Trey Parker to turn their critics into the antagonists with the whole war with Canada, Mothers Against Canada, and all that. Alright, Stars Born 2018. Star Trek, Star Wars, Super Mario Brothers movie. Oh, The Swimmer. It's a kind of obscure one from 1968. That was an interesting look at how a man deludes and stuff. I want to rewatch it now just because it was iconic when my English teacher played us the movie after we read the original short story for class, of course. There's this one moment that the class found amusing that he played back on loop for us because he was a cool teacher. You'd like him. Alright. I'm in the T's, and I cannot for the life of me find any other reflections, any other movies that could be considered reflections of the world around us. Or I guess if you really wanted to dive more deeply into it, you could probably come up with something, but we'd be here all day if I did that. Oh, Zootopia got a race metaphor that they did, but I don't know. But I've heard it's also a bit crudely constructed from other people, so I don't know if it's really the best example, but you get the idea. So anyway, let this go to show that legends are lessons. And contrary to what Matt Walsh says, yes, there is some educational value in certain works of fiction, not just for English class. Whether it's a movie that's based on true events that allow future generations to have an understanding of what it was like, or if it's a work of fiction that reflects the times. Like I said, works of fiction can do that. Defending Jacob, I just remembered. I said that in a live stream. I'm going to say it again. It's the perfect example of why teenagers should not have access to the internet unsupervised, if at all. Actually, it might be better that they don't have access to the internet in the first place. And if they do, parents are present and they can see every bit of browsing that they do. Sounds invasive, but let's just say if you've watched Defending Jacob, you'll know what I'm talking about. But on that note, I am going to leave it here for the video. Comment down below anything you see in movies or TV that you feel reflects your life or the world around you, or the world at the time if it's an older movie, if it's a movie that's older than you. If you give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I'll see you soon.